This video will show you how to replace the master cylinder on a Ford Edge. This will be located along the driver's side of your engine compartment. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. Through this process, we will have to make our way behind the wheels to each one of our bleeder screws. You want to make sure that they do open, otherwise you need to service that. Once you've confirmed that your bleeder screws open, we're under the hood. Under the hood at the master cylinder, we're going to open up our master cylinder reservoir cap. Inside of this area is where the brake fluid is located. Let's remove as much of it as possible. For this, I'm going to use a fluid extractor. We'll recycle that fluid as necessary. Once you've removed as much fluid as possible from inside of the reservoir, we'll just go ahead and rest that cap in position. To gain access to the master cylinder, let's remove our vehicle's battery. To remove the battery, we're going to start by removing our negative battery terminal. This is along the inboard side closest to our firewall. To remove this terminal end, you're going to loosen your 10mm mounting hardware, just enough that you can remove the terminal end from the battery post. Once you have it loosened, we'll just lift that up and off of there. Now when you do go ahead and remove this, we need to set it aside so it's making no contact with the battery post. Some batteries will have an insulator. If this is still in good usable order, go ahead and set it aside and you can reuse it. We're moving on to the positive battery terminal next. You may find that this has a plastic protector. Once you've removed the protector from the area, we'll continue on with the same hardware that we had loosened for the negative battery terminal. Now on this terminal, I can see a lot of corrosion, which we will have to remove prior to the installation, but for now, let's just go ahead and set that aside. The battery hold down is towards the driver's side of the battery, next to your fuse panel. We're using an 8mm to start loosening the mounting hardware. Down along the bottom is where you're going to find the hold down. Continuing on, carefully take hold of the battery. We're going to start lifting it up and out. It's going to come out diagonally. Go ahead and take hold of the negative battery cable. We're just going to go ahead and pivot this down. If you feel as though you need more space in this area, you could remove it from the far end here, but you should not necessarily need to do so. Let's focus on the removal of the master cylinder now. As we look along the driver's side of the master cylinder, you can see the level sensor wire connector. It has a locking tab along the bottom. We'll squeeze it in and pull it out of place. After it's dislodged, a quick inspection for corrosion. There's our locking tab right under there. After disconnecting that, let's move along to our two hydraulic brake lines. You may still have fluid inside the master cylinder and the hydraulic system, so of course we do have our collection receptacle under this area. I'm using a 15mm for each one of my brake line fittings. That line's dislodged. Let's make our way to the next. Same process here, 15mm. Each line is disconnected. At this point, it's time to remove the hardware holding the master cylinder in place. As far as the hardware holding this in position, I'm looking deep down in this area towards the firewall of the vehicle. This is where we can see that we have a 13mm mounting nut, which is attached to a stud attached to the vehicle itself. On the other side of the master cylinder, you're going to find you have the exact same thing. So the process will be the same. The other side is harder to gain access to. I'm going to start with that. Then we'll hold the master cylinder while we finish removing this piece of hardware. There's our first piece of hardware for that. At this point, we can take hold of the master cylinder assembly with the reservoir on it. We're going to carefully pull it away from the vehicle. Keep in mind there is brake fluid inside of this master cylinder. We do not want to spill it, especially on the painted surfaces of the vehicle. Now let's get this over to the bench. We have the master cylinder and reservoir on the bench. It's time to separate the two. Looking in the center of the two here, you're going to find that you have a small Torx bolt to be removed. Use an E7 Torx socket to remove this. It's an inverted socket. Go ahead and clean up that bolt. Give it a thorough inspection. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and set it aside. We will be reusing it. At this point, we can start separating this. Take hold of the reservoir and the master cylinder. We're going to give it a wiggle and attempt to lift it straight up and away. You could carefully pry, but be extremely careful not to cause any damage. Now that I have the reservoir dislodged, I always like to make sure I clean it up. Make sure it is reusable. If it looks as though it's damaged, you have to go ahead and replace it. This looks fine, so I'm going to set it aside. Let's prepare for installation of our brand new master cylinder. The first thing we want to do is pay attention to our reservoir. We've already cleaned it. There's no miscellaneous debris inside of this. I've removed all the original brake fluid. I'm aligning it with my rubber grommets here. These are also the seals. We're going to continue on, carefully pressing this straight down into the master cylinder. Now, as I press this down, I need to make sure it's completely seated. Looking at this, you can tell that it's not properly seated. The mounting hardware will not be installed properly, and we're going to have a leak. Take your time, do it right. Let's go ahead and press it on. Once you feel as though you have it in the proper placement, we have our cleaned bolt. I'm going to take that. We'll start it in by hand. We do not want to cross-thread it. Once you do have it started in, go ahead and snug it up. We'll make sure that's nice and tight. To bench bleed the master cylinder, I have this in the vise, and the vise is really just to hold it still for me. What we need to do is circulate the fluid throughout the entire reservoir and master cylinder. The fluid will make its way out through the ports, but I want to make sure I guide it right back up into my reservoir. Now for this, you're going to want to create some specialty lines with the adapter that fits the brake lines for your vehicle. We're just going to take this small adapter. If you have a fitting that fits in without an adapter, you can use that as well. My application, I found an adapter and it works. I'm just going to make sure that that's bottomed out. Let's do the same for the other area here. Continuing on, as I mentioned, I have some lines that will go from each one of my ports all the way up inside of my reservoir. I want to try to get the end down inside of where the fluid level would be. So we'll get this down as far as possible. Inside of the reservoir, you really can't get all the way down in here. It has a restriction. I'm just going to go ahead and start this line on. This is looking good. Now at this point, we can flex this as necessary. We'll make sure it makes its way into that master cylinder reservoir as I mentioned. Obviously, we want to be careful not to crimp our line. That's going to restrict brake fluid flow. Bring it in. Just make sure we don't have any brake fluid leaks here. We'll continue on with the manufacturer's specified brake fluid directly inside of the reservoir. We're attempting to fill it all the way up to the maximum line here. We obviously do not want to spill any. If you get any on a painted surface, you need to rinse it off. You can use some cold water. The brake fluid level needs to be above the tips of those lines. That's the most important part of this. Now that we have that done, we're focusing on this area here. Now this rod would be inside of your brake booster. You typically would not see it. When you step on the brake pedal, the rod would go all the way through this area, and then it would press on this. Now you can either press this by hand, you can use a small piece of wood, or if you happen to have a brass dowel, you can use that as well. We want to be careful not to cause any damage. Even a small burr can be an issue. Let's do this as slow as possible. We're attempting to press this down and through so we can press out as much fluid and air from in the system as possible. We can top off the reservoir as necessary. Now, once you've continued this process enough times that you found that there's no air making its way out of the master cylinder through the lines up into the reservoir, we can continue on. But you do want to repeat this process until you're sure you do not see any air bubbles. We're going to start removing the lines. For this, what I always like to do is have a collection receptacle under here. You're going to lose some fluid. Once you have a collection receptacle, make your way up towards the top of the reservoir. Remove the lines from inside of the reservoir and reinstall your cap. Now at this point, we can start removing the lines from this area. A note about this, your brand new master cylinder came with protective plugs. You can use the plugs that go inside of this for transference over to the vehicle to help prevent fluid leakage. Most of this fluid's just coming out of the line, not necessarily the master cylinder. Let's go ahead and take that protective cover. We're sliding it over the port. That's going to help prevent anything from making its way in and fluid making its way out. Go ahead and repeat the process for the other line. We'll clean any mess from this area and we can get back over to the vehicle. Before we can install the master cylinder, we need to pay close attention deep inside this area. We're looking at the mounting point where we had removed the master cylinder from. This is the brake booster. You can see the circular port. Looking deep inside that area, if you see any fluid, and it's brake fluid, you're going to have to replace the brake booster as well. I'm just going to give this a quick wipe with a clean rag, no detergents. After confirming that's in good usable order, let's continue on to each of our two lines. Make sure the fittings aren't rotted or weak, and the lines just the same. Now let's go ahead and install the master cylinder with reservoir. I'm leaving my protective covers on my ports. Let's slide this into position over those mounting studs. We're going to have to make our way around wiring harnesses and, of course, our lines in this area. I'm attempting to line this up. Once you feel as though you have the master cylinder in the proper position, let's continue on with our mounting hardware. Start on each piece of hardware, one on each side. We're going to bottom it out. After that, you can torque each piece to 18 foot-pounds. Let's double check to make sure that's properly secured. The master cylinder should not move around in any way. Now let's continue on with our two brake lines. I'm going to start with the one closest to the brake booster. As you start removing your protective plugs, you may find fluid makes its way out. Of course, we do have our collection receptacle under this area. When we install the lines, we're going to lightly bottom them out. Okay, right there's bottomed out. Let's go ahead and repeat this process for the next line. That one's bottomed out as well. Now, while we're still up in this area, I always like to try to make sure that I remove as much air between the master cylinder and the brake lines leading to the rest of my braking system before continuing any further. So with that said, I'm going to have a second person inside of the passenger compartment. I already have my brake master fluid full, so let's continue on with each one of the lines. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to crack one of the lines open. Just a gentle twist here. After that, I'm going to ask the person inside of the vehicle to press down on the brake. Fluid will make its way out of this area, and it should push out all the air. Before they release the brake, I need to make sure I close this. After that, they can release. We'll repeat the process as necessary. Let's start with this one since it's out in the open. Go ahead and step down on that brake pedal, please. This is exactly what we're looking to see. You can see air making its way out. Now I have a steady trickle of fluid here. It's looking really good. All right. So I heard him telling me that he's all the way down on the floor with this. I'm going to lightly close this off. Let's repeat the process one more time on this line just to confirm there's no air. Open this one time. You can release real quick. Okay, he's released, so I'm opening the line. Go ahead and press down. They're on the floor. Let's close this line. Okay. Now this is the last time I'm opening this line. I'm making sure it's tight. Go ahead and release that brake pedal. Now on to the next line, same exact process here. We're trying to make sure we have no air in the system. Repeat the process as many times as necessary. Go ahead and press down. Okay, he's holding it. I'm going to close this line. It's closed. Go ahead and release. Okay, I'm going to open it again here. And you can press. It's on the floor. Close that line. Double check to make sure both lines are properly secured. Clean any mess in this area. While we're still in this area, let's reconnect our fluid level sensor. We have our electrical connector. The locking tab will be facing down. Line it up, press it in. After an audible click, we'll just make sure that's secure. Continuing on, let's make sure that our negative battery terminal is out of the way, and it's time to reinstall our battery. Before we get ready to install the battery, the next thing we always like to do is make sure we clean and inspect each one of our terminal ends. Looking at this positive terminal end, we can see that there is a lot of corrosion all the way around the terminal end, and we need to make sure that we remove it. With that said, you can use a battery brush. You can also use some battery terminal cleaner, whatever's easiest for you. Now, after you've cleaned out as much of the corrosion as possible, I'm also going to use my battery brush directly in the center here. I want to make sure I have good contact up against my battery. The positive terminal looks good. We'll set that aside. I'm going to repeat the process for the negative terminal. Now it's time to install our battery. When we go to install this, let's make sure we have our battery post facing towards the inboard side of our engine compartment. We'll bring this down at an angle and slide it into position. Once you have it rested in the proper position, press it all the way towards the engine side of the engine compartment, and then we'll continue on with the battery hold down. As for the battery hold down, let's make sure we have it in the proper orientation. Looking along the bottom area, we can see that we do have this grooved portion. That's for the battery to rest inside of. So we're going to slide this down into the proper positioning, and in the center is where we have the mounting hardware. Now, as far as my mounting hardware, I've cleaned the threads and applied anti-seize. Start it in, snug it up. We'll take hold of the battery, attempt to move it. It should not move around in any way. Before we install our terminal ends onto the battery posts, we'll make sure that we clean each one of the battery posts. Whether you're replacing the battery with a brand new battery or a used battery, you need to make sure you clean the mounting area. Now, since our battery did have insulators, I'm just going to reinstall that. We'll take the positive terminal end, we're sliding it down onto the battery post as far as possible. Once you feel as though you have it down, continue on with tightening your 10mm mounting nut. Right there is bottomed out. We'll just take it a tiny bit further. We do not want to cause any damage, but we need to make sure that this is properly secured. It should not move around in any way. Go ahead and protect that positive battery terminal, and then you're making your way to the negative battery terminal next. I have an insulator. Get my terminal end on there. Pressing it down. Bottomed out, just a tiny bit further, and it's secure. Let's go ahead and top off that master cylinder reservoir with clean .3 brake fluid. You can use a funnel if necessary to gain access in this area. We're going right up to the maximum line. Now we can reinstall our brake master cap. Now we can continue on with the brake bleeding procedure. We're going to start at the passenger side rear. Now I have a second person inside of the vehicle. We're going to start bleeding the brakes. I'm on the passenger side rear. As far as this is concerned, of course we do have a collection receptacle underneath where our bleeder screw is. If you happen to have a rubber protective cover, just go ahead and remove that now. We're going to set that aside. Typically you would want to reuse it. At this point, I'm going to carefully open up my bleeder screw here. What I want to do is make sure that it breaks free. So once I have this open, there we go. It does break free. I can see fluid. I'm just going to lightly close this. Now I'm going to ask the person inside of the vehicle to pump up the brake pedal approximately 3 to 5 times and hold it. While they're holding, they're going to let me know. I'm going to reopen this. The pressure from their foot on the brake pedal, making its way through the lines, is going to start pressing out any fluid and air from in this system. We need to remove as much air as possible, and of course we only want clean and brand new brake fluid only. Let's go ahead and pump up that brake pedal, please. Okay, go ahead and pump. Go ahead and pump. You can release, thank you. Now at this point, we repeated the process as many times as necessary. I saw that there's no air in the system and the fluid looked clean. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and clean up the mess here. I'll reinstall my protective cover. Make your way over to the other side of the vehicle, the driver's side rear. Repeat this exact same process. Once you've completed that side, there's no air and only clean brake fluid, stop at the master cylinder and top it off. Under the hood, let's go ahead and remove that cap. We're using our funnel, clean .3 brake fluid. Just go ahead and top that off. After topping off the master cylinder, we're at the passenger side front caliper. I'm going to remove my protective cover here. Just go ahead and pull that right out of place. Of course, I have my collection receptacle under here. Let's go ahead and start pumping the brakes. $8mm wrench. Go ahead and pump. Go ahead and pump. Okay, you can release, thank you. Now, as you saw, we had only clean brake fluid making its way out. We removed any air from the system on this side of the vehicle. We're going to clean this mess, reinstall the protective cover. You're going over to the driver's side front caliper next. Repeat that process. Remove any air, then you're back at that master cylinder one last time. Let's top off the master cylinder one last time, all the way up to our maximum line here. Got my funnel, clean .3. Make sure that cover is nice and tight, clean any mess in this area. Okay friend, we finished the job. Now at this point, we need to just double check for leaks, confirming there's no hydraulic fluid leaks. Aside from that, once your wheels are installed, you're making sure everything's torqued to 100 foot-pounds, close the hood and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.